So I live in Cheat Lake, Morgantown, West Virginia. My name is Martina Adkins, and I'm an interior designer. So I was born and raised in Zweibrücken, Germany, Deutschland. And really my goal back then was to just finish college in Germany. And I went to the gym on a daily basis and met my ex-husband, who was a soldier in the Air Force. And so we met at the gym, and long story short, fell in love. And he was very young. He was 19. I was 21. And we just fell in love. And after 3 years, he asked me to marry him. I said yes immediately because I was just so taken by this man. He was very charming and very American and just different he came from a different culture, and I noticed that difference right away. And I was intrigued. I thought, oh, this is so very different from any German man that I've ever met. And I was just intrigued. He was so charming. And anyways, we got married, and then he enlisted in Germany, or re-enlisted twice, because he loved Germany so much. So after the second re-enlistment, America said, sorry, you have to come back. So at that point, that's what he told me. We have to go to America. And at that point, it sunk in. Oh my gosh, I'm going to a different country now. I have to leave my parents, my sister, my grandma. Just everything that I know and am familiar with is now no longer going to be. And that was a very harsh reality for me, and a very big wake-up call. So, yeah. I came here to this country in 1991. So I was 24 years old. I left my family behind, and that was extremely hard. My sister was 3. So there's 22 years between us, and she's my only sibling. So I had to leave her, and I will never forget. I grew up in an apartment in Germany. My parents were upper middle class. But in Germany, it's a small country, so there's not as many generational wealth is there, but not as present as it is here in this country because it's so small. So there's a lot of people that grow up in apartments. That's a normal way of life, right? That's not, oh gosh, you're poor because you come from an apartment life. So anyways, lived in an apartment, and I will never forget when I left, when I said goodbye, and it was really goodbye. It wasn't like, bye, see you later, which it ended up being because I would go visit every year, but goodbye as in for me living there. I will never forget my little 3-year-old sister standing by the window on the 3rd floor. They're crying. Waving goodbye. That was the hardest part. Yep. But, at the age of 24, you're not thinking so much about, I thought about it in that moment of leaving, but afterwards, you don't think about it so much anymore because you're starting a new life, right? And especially at the age of 24, you're so wrapped up in your own, starting your life and, So I didn't really think about it much. And then I was able to visit almost every year. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that. But it became harder as I got older because I now understood the value of your roots, where you come from. So coming to West Virginia was amazing for me because, first of all, the landscape is a lot like where I'm from. I'm from Rheinland-Pfalz, which is very much, the rolling hills and the smaller mountains. And it was just so amazing. The whole feel of West Virginia was like, oh my gosh, I'm home. What am I fretting about? What am I scared about? So I built this life in West Virginia, and I loved it. And West Virginia became part of my whole existence. I embraced West Virginia as my new home. I wasn't resentful. I wasn't like, oh gosh, even though my roots are so deep, I was never resentful because, first of all, my marriage fell apart after we got here. But I met this amazing man who I've been married to now for 30 years. And he's originally from Wayne County, West Virginia, so Huntington area. He went to college there and everything. So my life just became amazing here. And anywhere we lived in West Virginia, we moved a few times. We moved to Georgia from Fairmont, West Virginia, moved to Georgia. We also moved to Florida. Every single time we came back to West Virginia. Yeah. Well, actually, and I leave this out because I was only there for like a year. My very first time in America was Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler Air Force Base. That's where I had my son. He's 34 now. And then after that, he was dishonorably discharged from the military. My ex-husband. Yeah. He was abusive, became abusive when we came here to the United States. Yeah. This charming man that I met in Germany. So then Georgia, and that's where I actually met my husband at work, my now husband. I met him there at work. And like I said, he was from Huntington, West Virginia, and we actually worked for the same company, and the same company found out about us. So we both were let go. Yeah. And this was during the time when the .com was happening. Sure. So my husband lost his job as well. He was in tech, but it was an environmental drilling company in Georgia, and they had a tech department, and he was actually doing drafting and some tech, as he started out right after college. And then we had no choice to find a job somewhere else. So my husband applied for Lockheed Martin, and they had a job opening as a contractor for the FBI. Oh. So the FBI brought us here. And we found a house in Fairmont, which was halfway between Morgantown and Bridgeport, where he worked at Sieges. Yes, good question. Oh my gosh, very good question. So that was my next thing. So when I got divorced, this was in Georgia, I actually went back to Germany. I went back for 6 months, but my ex-husband finally figured out, oh gosh, I made a mistake. And he would call me every single day in Germany. Please come back. I want to see my son grow up. As a young woman with a conviction, I felt, oh my gosh, why am I doing it? I'm taking, even though I was the one being abused, I felt like, oh my gosh, what am I doing to this man? He's now telling me he really wants to be in his son's life. Who am I to take that away from him? So he begged me to come back, and I came back after 6 months of being in Germany. So I came back again. My Oma, my grandma, actually, because my mom was totally against it, she said, please don't leave again. This is a toxic situation you don't want to be in. I'm 24, right? What do I know? No, I'm going back. My heart was, my Oma saw my heart. And she said, hier, mein Kind, geh du wieder dahin, wo du herkommst. Go back to where you came from, if that is where your heart is. And she gave me the money for the flight. So I flew back to America, met up with him again. Obviously, things were toxic, didn't work out, got divorced, and met my now husband. It was very hard to leave America, actually, to go back to Germany, not because I loved America. At that point, I did not really love it yet. But it was still hard because, I was still in love with my ex-husband at that point. But I needed to go back to Germany. The pressure of my parents, come back, you need to come back. What are you still doing there, But funny enough, I was so invested in building a life here that when I did go back to Germany for that short period of time, I felt empty there too. because now I was no longer my parents' child. I was now a single woman with a child. And that was a very different feel, even in Germany. So I felt empty there too. So it was very easy for me to say, yeah, I'll come back. And thank goodness I did, because my husband now, 30 years, is amazing. You're bringing that change with you, and it no longer fits into that environment. So, and I'm so thankful. And gosh, this makes me so emotional, and I'm sorry, but West Virginia, you know, we've lived here for 14 years, and then we moved to Florida for 7, and then we came back to West Virginia because we missed it so much. Because I think community here is like no other place. Georgia wasn't like that. Florida was most certainly not that. West Virginia was always that. West Virginia always had that feel of home and community and being appreciated. Even as an immigrant in West Virginia, I was appreciated until certain things happened politically. And then I was no longer appreciated. So when we realized we had to go back to the United States because my ex-husband no longer was able to re-enlist, I had to go to Frankfurt, Germany. That's where the immigration process started. I remember a stack of paperwork, and I kid you not, it was at least this much. And it was all paperwork back then, right? So I even had to get a AIDS test. They weren't going to let me immigrate until you do this AIDS test. I will never forget that. And so it was kind of humiliating a little bit because, of course, as a German citizen, I felt, oh my gosh, I'm a German citizen. I'm not some, you know, they just made you feel like you're some low life and, you know, you want to come to America. Oh my God, you have to work for it now to come to America. And I think that's an old way of thinking about it. So I come here and I think everything is great. Everything is great. And it really was. But it was hard with all this paperwork and all this going back and forth, Frankfurt, Zweibrücken, constantly. Like it went on for months. I think 6 months it took for all the paperwork to be done. Then, and my ex-husband at the time was in the military. So, you know, people always think, oh, you're a citizen automatically because your husband was in the military. I'm like, no, you still had to go through all that, right? So then I finally received my green card, my permanent resident card, which was then called resident alien back then. And yeah, I renewed my resident card 3 times before I became an American citizen just last year. I don't, you know, it's not like I'm from a third world country and I have to come here for a better life. It's not that at all. I came here only because of my ex-husband, because he had to come back. So obviously I came with him. But yeah, so the process of becoming an American citizen, I was proud, but my pride was very, very short-lived and very intimate. Very intimate. I kept it to myself because to me it was really no big deal because I already felt like a citizen, right? The only thing I couldn't do was vote. And, you know, back going back 25, 30 years, I never felt the need to have to vote because, you know, politics have always been corrupt no matter where you go, no matter what country you're in. But the corruption now has exceeded the corruption has exceeded my, I don't know how to say this in English. I now felt like I have a certain privilege being from Germany in knowing that, yes, I'm an immigrant, but, you know, they'll probably look at me and say, "Oh, you're from Germany. Okay, you must be a Nazi. Welcome. We love you. You can stay here, and your skin is white. You're not brown. You're fine." So my privilege was not to be afraid of ICE necessarily, but my motivation to become an American citizen was to vote. And that's why I became an American citizen. I want to communicate that we're all human beings and we all come from families who dearly love us and who we dearly love. And it's extremely hard to leave your country to come here, whether you are coming here legal or not, because some of the legal process takes a long time and is also very expensive, and not all people have that ability to pay $900 to become an American citizen right away. And I think that's why so many people come here illegally initially to find a job and work and become an American citizen legally, right? But you have to give, and this is what we do in Germany. We took all these Syrians in. We all welcomed them with open arms. Yes, we had problems with some of them, absolutely. And there was some criminals, absolutely. But we gave them due process, which is a human right. You should give people due process, right? So, and as soon as we did due process, the ones that didn't fit or didn't want to fit into our society in Germany, they were sent back. And a lot of people in America don't know this about Europe, that we don't just take all these immigrants and now we're just a crappy country. No, we take all the immigrants, give them due process. And that's how it should be here, right? So people who come in, from South America, Honduras, Guatemala, all these places, they have no chance there because of their politics and their corruption. So it's not anything that is their fault. They're just wanting a part of what every human has the right to have, so they try to do it to the best of their knowledge. And I have to say, we built a house here in Cheat Lake, and our contractor was from Guatemala. And yes, he did have some illegals that worked here. Well, the American contractors that worked for a different builder in our community, they kind of ratted him out for having these illegal immigrants. And, I hear so many people here saying, damn right, they should be here legally and they should do it the right. Well, if they don't always have that privilege to do so immediately before they come here. They have to come here first. Then they can start the process, the legal process. And so I just want people to know that we all come from a place of our childhood, our heritage, and we want to incorporate it with you. We don't want to be separate. We want to belong with you. We don't want to be like you. We want to be us still, but we want to incorporate it, just like the beautiful melting pot America is, or once was, right? We're all here for different reasons, and nobody's better than the other person,